Hey, what's up guys? Kool-Aid here. Today we're going to be talking all about Skyhammer, the free merc who loves to drop nasty little airstrikes on his enemies. And if you're one of his teammates and you're fortunate enough, he might actually give you some ammo as well. So first let's start with his speed and health. He does have 120 hit points, which ties him with Artie and Redeye for third overall behind Fragger and behind Rhino, of course. Now with that higher health, he does have a little slower speed rating at 400, and that is going to make him one of the slower mercs in the game. However, that's to be expected when you have a good health pool like that. And the health pool speed combination that we have here plays really well with his primary weapons. It kind of leads into that same sort of play style. And his primary weapons are going to be all assault rifles, all three. And we have two that are going to be full auto, one that's going to be 3-round burst, and we'll talk about that one first. It is the BR-16. It's going to do 15 damage per shot at 220 rounds per minute. It does have a magazine size of 27 with a reload speed of 2 seconds. Now, in between those 3-round bursts, there is going to be a 0.27 second delay, but you can get this thing firing pretty fast. One other thing to know about the BR-16 is that each of the bursts does have its own recoil. So when you fire this thing, you're going to want to aim at the bottom of the head or even towards the upper chest if you're at longer ranges, because it's going to recoil up and it's going to lead to those headshots. I really like this gun. I think the fact that it is 3-round burst kind of forces you to fire a little bit slower and kind of allows you to get that cone of fire bloom to reset a little bit, making you more accurate. You know, some people that use full auto weapons have that, just get that urge to hold down the trigger, and then your cone of fire bloom grows and your bullets become less and less accurate. The BR-16 is just kind of forcing you to have some trigger control, making you a little more accurate. So this is actually my preferred weapon for longer ranges, and a lot of the times, or on a lot of maps, Skyhammer is going to want to be at longer ranges. This weapon is great for that. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best weapon for Skyhammer, but if you do tend to play a little bit further back, maybe play a little bit slower, especially on defense, you know, this is a really good weapon. And it does lose a little bit in close quarters because it doesn't have that full auto capability. However, it can still hold its own, especially once you learn how to use the gun properly. So very good weapon. Now let's talk about the two full autos, and they're going to be very similar. We have the M4A1 and the Timic 47. They're both going to do 14 damage per shot. They're both going to have a 35-round magazine. The M4A1 is going to reload slightly slower at 2.1 seconds, where the Timic 47 is at 2 seconds. But the Timic is going to fire a little bit faster at 550 rounds per minute, where the M4A1 is going to fire at 535 rounds per minute. The M4A1's damage is actually going to drop off a little bit faster as well, but it does have one thing going for it. It is going to be a little more accurate than the Timic 47. And when you start comparing really close weapons, I think accuracy is kind of king, and I think that's why a lot of Skyhammer players gravitate towards the M4A1. Now, I personally had a lot of success with both weapons. I don't really favor one over the other. A lot of times I just go with the Timic 47 because I own an AK in real life and it's skinned after an AK. So, I mean, that's how close I actually think they are. I did do some slight testing on them as far as recoil patterns, and they're both actually have very similar recoil patterns. They're going to recoil up and slightly to the right. So very similar weapons, both very good weapons. Overall, Skyhammer just has a really good weapon pool to choose from. As far as secondary weapons go, he has the Simeon 357, the Smooth and Wetsman, and the DE50. And I'm not going to give you guys the stats for these or anything. It'd pretty much just be a waste of you guys' time. They're all slow-firing, hard-hitting weapons. The Smooth and Wetsman is going to hit the hardest, where the DE50 is going to fire the fastest. But for the most part, out of all the mercs besides maybe Nader, Skyhammer's the one that I use my secondary the least, because you can resupply yourself with ammo. Now, that's not to say you're never going to pull it out to finish somebody off. You are still going to use it, but I really don't have a preference between these three. In fact, I've used the DE50 most out of them. I've used the Simeon 357 just a little bit, and I've used the Smooth and Wetsman very rarely, so I'm not going to give any sort of recommendation other than to say I wouldn't factor this in too much when choosing your loadout. I think it's a very small factor when it comes to that. Now, as far as his primary abilities, I'm going to talk more about the airstrike towards the end of the video when I talk about some tips for Skyhammer. I will just say that it's probably one of the best single abilities of any merc in the game if you take, not even, but especially if you take the cooldown out of the equation. It can just, pretty much change a game. You can single-handedly win a game with one airstrike. Now, it does have that long cooldown of 1 minute and 10 seconds. One thing I like to do on a lot of maps, if I don't feel like playing Skyhammer, I'll just keep him in my 3-man rotation and switch to him every once in a while, drop the airstrike if needed, and then play him till I die, and then switch back to the character that I feel like playing. You can totally do that because of that long cooldown. It's a good option. His secondary ability is ammo packs, and let me be clear about this. You can resupply your teammates with ammo, and obviously I say this kind of joking around, but it's true. A lot of people fail to drop ammo, and it's one of it's a great way to help your team. It really is. When somebody's out of ammo, they don't have their primary weapon, even possibly their secondary weapon, it puts a big dent in your team. It's basically playing with one less player. So make sure you keep ammo on the ground. You can carry a maximum of 4, and they recharge incredibly fast at 8 seconds per box. So keep them around you at all the time. In fact, on defense, if my teams kind of huddle around the same area defending one spot, I'll just spam them out no matter what. You don't have to wait till somebody's got the ammo sign above their head. You really don't. So just keep them down at all the time. One other thing I like to do with ammo is right when I spawn, I will throw down 3 or 4 boxes as I'm running to where I want to go. That way any teammates that spawn behind me can automatically pick up those boxes, because not everybody spawns with a full ammo supply. Unless you're using the perk that gives you the extra magazine, you'll basically give everybody that augment without them actually having to have a loadout card with that augment on it. So just remember to keep your ammo down. It really is a big help without really taking any effort whatsoever. As far as suggested loadouts or augments go, Skyhammer is one augment that I really like and I try to keep on any card that I play, and that is Exploded Dendrum, and that's a 10% increase to blast radius to AoE abilities. So it's going to make your airstrike that much better. If I look at all the cards, I think it really depends on obviously what weapon that you prefer, but if you do like the full auto assault rifles, the M92 Elite Rifleman is going to give you the M4A1. It's going to give you the Smooth and Wetsman. It's going to give you the Stiletto, and it's going to give you Exploded Dendrum. Also on that card, you're going to get Drilled, which is the 20% reduction to reload time, which is another nice perk. The third one is Guardian Angel, where you receive an audio warning whenever artillery or airstrikes are incoming. Not really a big deal unless you have a problem with those. Most people can usually see the marker, but there are times when you're paying attention to something else where that can come into play. Now, if you do prefer the BR16, he's actually got a pretty good card with Exploded Dendrum, Chopper, which is the increase to melee damage. You're not really going to be meleeing a lot with Skyhammer, but it also has Quick Draw on it as well, which gives you the 30% reduction to the time to take to raise and lower your weapons. So those would probably be my 2 suggested cards. Now, he does have another card, the M63 Savant Rifleman, which comes with that M4A1. It does have Exploded Dendrum on it, and it has Mechanic. It's the only card that he has with Mechanic. So if you really like playing the objectives, this might be the card for you. It improves any repair tools and disarm rates by 20%. So if you're just somebody that likes Skyhammer's weapons but really loves playing engineers classes, you might want to go with this loadout card. Exploded Dendrum is definitely the one that I try to go for, though. So before I wrap this up, just going to go over a few tips for Skyhammer. The most obvious one is that the airstrike marker can be used as a grenade indoors. You guys have probably read it on the loading screen a billion times now. It's something I actually still always forget to do, but it will drastically lower the cooldown to around 15 seconds as well. So keep that in mind, even if you like to play Skyhammer on maps that you can't necessarily drop an airstrike or in a section of a map. You can still use that as somewhat of a grenade. Also, as far as for the airstrike itself, this is something, again, that I didn't know until recently, and you'll probably notice from this gameplay I'm not using this to full effect. The airstrike will actually drop perpendicular to the direction that you are facing. So if you want to take out an EV, say it's going in a straight line, you know the direction it's going to be going, you want to kind of hit it from the side so it gets the full effect of your airstrike. And also, one other thing to keep in mind is that the plane that actually comes in to drop your airstrike always comes from right to left. So this is another small thing to keep in mind when placing down your airstrike marker. The last thing I want to mention is fighting, getting engaged in fights with Skyhammer. If you are at medium to longer ranges where Skyhammer really shines and you're facing somebody with an SMG, shotgun, one of the lower range weapons, you don't want to do the 80-80 dance as much or strafe as much as you would on some other characters. He has the health to absorb a little extra damage, and you want to keep your guns as accurate as possible. So by kind of staying a little more still, you're going to get the full accuracy out of them weapons, and you'll be able to mow people down incredibly fast with those guns, where their SMGs, their shotguns are going to have the damage drop off, and they're just not going to be able to keep up with you. Now, of course, if you're facing a shotgun in closer range, you're going to want to get out of the way of that. Or if you're facing somebody like Red Eye, Artie, Vasily, somebody with a longer range weapon, you are going to want to do that kind of 80-80 strafe, or at least try to get behind some cover until you can close the gap where your gun's going to outshine them. And that's the beauty of assault rifles. They have a good ability in almost every combat situation in Dirty Bomb. So Skyhammer's a really good character. I know I just did a kind of a brief overview here, left a lot of stuff out. So if you have more tips for Skyhammer, feel free to leave them in the comment section. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to y'all later.